Welcome back to the Paul White Show. I do have an in-studio guest in case you are just joining her. Me, and her name is Evelyn Nair. She's with the County Extension Agency, and we've been talking about community gardening. So I hope you didn't miss any of the first part of it because we talked about some important things in a community garden. Now, Evelyn, all of the places, a lot of places, one thing that they need to consider if they do a community garden is that it has access to water.
Absolutely. That's really critical for gardening in Kansas because we don't have much control. I mean,
Right.
we have no control
Right,
over the rain.
right.
Somebody else is in control of the rain.
Right.
So either if you have access to city water or if you have a well, that then you can run hoses and drip lines and those kind of things because you have to keep watering.
Right.
Plants are over 90% water,
Right.
and they're so dependent on water for success. So that's one of the initial things that you really have to figure out with your area that you want to set up this community garden is, what's there,
Right.
what kind of situation do we have. You want to make sure you have a place that has a lot of sun, 6 to 8 hours of sun, because that's, you might be able to grow a few things in
Right.
low light areas, but anything that flowers and produces a fruit, like, a tomato or a
Right.
cucumber or a pepper or whatever,
Right.
they need plenty of light. So we want to make sure we don't have that competition from trees for light and for water. You may have to do some grading or
Right.
some leveling of the soil, make sure it drains.
Right.
Make sure you have adequate drainage in an area because, we've all driven by a lot sometimes and when it rains a lot,
It's
that whole
underwater.
thing's underwater. Well, that's not going to be
No.
a good sight. So you need the water, either, like I said, through a well or through public access
Right.
to water. You might need a shed to store some tools, equipment, that kind of thing. Depending on what kind of situation you have, you might want to purchase a little equipment. You might want
Right.
to have a rototiller that everybody can share. You might need a mower to mow the aisles and the areas surrounding it. And a lot of gardens have kind of a community tool supply that
Right.
you could share rakes and hoes and shovels and, basic tools. Because when you're first getting into gardening, you don't always really even know what you need.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that helps some of those new gardeners get started. Some places have a fence.
Yeah.
They may or may not. So, those are some of the things you think about. Might be nice to have a picnic table, a little area
Right.
that
A little
you
rest
get,
area.
little rest area that when you get tired, maybe you want to go sit and visit, just chill out for a little
Right.
bit, rest,
Right.
cool
Right.
down, and have a little community gathering place. So there's quite a few things to think about. You might want, back to the water, you might want to figure out how are we going to take care of the water bill.
Right.
Are we
Yeah.
going to, everybody's going to chip in together? Maybe if it's on city water, you might be able to visit with the water department in your
Right.
area and see if they might cut you a break on the bill or supply it for free.
Right.
Sometimes a garden is connected with an agency, a community center or a church or something, and sometimes they'll just let you have the water. But it's okay to charge a little bit for that water
Right.
because then people are a little more careful with it. They're a little more conservative. They don't go off and leave it running and make sure that you wisely use that
Right.
water resource.
Right. Now it would be an ideal time to start planning for something like this, so you would have all your plans or all your ducks in a row when
Right.
it's time to garden. It's not very long before here in Kansas it'll be time to garden. In fact, you could start gardening in February.
Yeah, you could. There's a few things you
Right.
can always put in early, but the sooner you can get started on that planning process, the better. And it may even be you're actually not going to get started this year. You may actually
Right.
be thinking about the
Right.
following year.
Right.
Because that way it gives you time to get the ground prepared. If you have a lot of Bermuda grass and weeds, that this summer you could kill all that out. Get rid of that
Right.
so you're not fighting that battle.
Right.
You figure out your organizational system, who's going to take care of the money, who's going
Right.
to take care of the registrations, who's going to plan the events,
Mhm.
those kind of things. So just like any other project,
Right.
planning really helps the whole
Right.
situation.
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah, and if you already have one kind of established, maybe say you got started last year or something like that, it's a good idea to visit your nurseries if you got stuff that didn't work out for you last year because you didn't really actually know where to plant it at in your garden. That's very important too in a garden, because some things, if they're not planted where they need to be, they can take over other crops in the garden, and your garden could turn out a failure just because you didn't know. I didn't know this was going to have a 15-foot vine on it
Right.
and choke out my,
Right.
my squash or whatever.
Well, I'll
So-
tell you, there's one publication that K-State Research and Extension has that's just fabulous. It's called the Kansas Garden Guide, and you can either go to your local extension office and buy it. It's usually $5-6 range, or you can go to the state website and actually download it for free. So if you go to www.ksre.ksu.edu and click on the Publications tab and look for the Kansas Garden Guide, you can download it and read the sections that you'd like, or you
Right.
can print off those pages and then you have that. So that's a fabulous resource. Like you said, you can go to your local nursery or garden center, seed store, and check out those seed racks and,
Right.
and be looking at what's going to be coming up, because
Right.
the perfect thing about gardening, Paul, is that if it didn't work this last year or the previous year, every year you get a new chance.
Right.
It's
Right,
one of those things, you get a do-over.
Right.
So
Right.
you learn from it every year.
right.
So
Yeah, you do. That'll just cut down some of your mistakes if you talk to somebody about it that's experienced it first. All right, Ellen, we're going to take another commercial break, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned. You're watching The Paul White Show.